Hi everyone, my name is Ima, and my brother and
Sorry.
I run
Come on, kid.
Imperium, which is a cycling coaching company. We're based in SoCal, we're in Ontario. But we're just gonna go over not just like preparing for your best season, but some other things that might be beneficial to all coaches, coaches that have been doing this for a while, to help their athletes, their new athletes. Something that's important. I know that cycling is an expensive sport. We got into it when we were young, and cost was a thing. So I wanted to also just speak a little bit more on cycling on a budget and how you can kind of keep the costs low, as well as some drills and skills to help your athletes develop in that aspect of their riding. Perfect. So I'm gonna try to do all of all the talking in like maybe 30 to 40 minutes, and then we can do like a Q&A if people have more questions towards the end. Okay. So kind of overview of this webinar is to give some of the coaches resources to aid their athletes in their cycling development. I know that as NICA coaches, we see athletes from the entire spectrum of experience in cycling. From the kid who maybe has a BMX bike or is just getting into cycling and don't even have a bike, they're borrowing a bike and don't have the equipment, to the other side of the spectrum where they've already been racing and their parents are on board and they have all of the support and resources. So I'm going to try to do my best to give tips that will apply to both sides of the spectrum. So we'll walk through some of the key processes and give some tactics on how to help athletes prepare for an upcoming season. This is going to be just kind of an overall agenda. I want to give you guys a little bit of background on me and my brother and our program, as well as who we help and actually who you guys help as well as NICA coaches, how you can help athletes set goals and identify where to get the most bang for their buck out of riding and out of practicing. And I think that's really important, not just for cycling, but because a lot of those disciplines and tactics can apply to their school life. And then as they graduate and join the workforce or things like that. I do want to give a general overview of what an annual training plan looks like, and maybe what you should do in October versus February, and what different workouts kind of look like. Transition period, which is where we kind of are, and some different aspects of training, and then we'll do a Q&A as well after we do the cycling on a budget and the drills and skills, which are more resource based. So here we go. Okay, so this is my brother right here. This is Ama. He's our head coach, so he does a lot more of the everyday speaking and training of the athletes. And then this is me. We are still competitive cyclists. I kind of have to be because I lead some of our group rides. We do about 3 or 4 group rides each month with athletes, and anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 hours for a little bit more advanced athletes. But we both did go through NICA all 4 years. So I think I joined NICA right. My freshman year was the first year that someone could have done all 4 years. So it was about the 3rd or 4th year of NICA when I got introduced to it. I feel so fortunate because we still have a lot of friends, and I still talk to my NICA coaches because they're still local, and sometimes it's not even riding. Sometimes we're just catching up or going on hikes or things like that. We haven't advanced through cycling. Started off as racing locally, and racing NICA as a freshman through varsity. Beyond that, I had a road cyclist. His name's Roy. He reached out to me, and that's when I got a little bit more into road after my senior year of high school, and did some races with the national team and developed there. I feel very fortunate. I had a really good director who had been to the Olympics, and he was a really big mentor to me at that point of my life. And he is still part of my life today, which is something that I'm very grateful for. After that, I did cycle collegiately, and so is Amma. He's actually going to Milligan with a couple of our athletes, actually, and uh, did a little bit more road cycling. At that point of time, became a professional while I was my last year of college. And then now we help athletes where we can. I've graduated. I help Amma with the cycling business, but I do work at a job for the most of the hours of each weekday. But yeah, that's where we are. We have so much joy in riding with the athletes and seeing them develop, because we do work with athletes who are freshmen and those who are seniors, and then as they become collegians, and help them take cycling wherever they want. We've worked from beginners to helping coach people who've become national champions, and working with people racing world championships and things like that. So to who we help, and when I say we, it's not just Amma and I, but actually you guys as well. So I categorically, there's two main groups, and this is either side of the spectrum. One, you have those more committed athletes who already have some knowledge, some skills, some fitness when it comes to riding, and they've been practicing, but maybe they're looking to achieve more, whether that be winning a category or placing on the podium. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the beginners, the intermediates, the people that are interested. They're looking to ride safer, ride faster. And I know that of the NICA teams that we have worked with, there's typically a couple of coaches, whether those be dads or moms or teachers. The people that typically need more of the help is going to be the beginner athletes. They need the coaching, they need help knowing which equipment to get. They don't know the trails. So a lot of effort's going to be spent on the newer athletes, whereas the more committed athletes are going to be the people that maybe lead smaller groups, 3 to 5 athletes, and maybe they're doing longer rides, harder rides, and maybe there's one coach, 2 coaches that are helping them out, but typically they're at a level where it's difficult for the coaches to, I don't know, help them progress, because they're already so fast, it's hard to keep up. So those are 2 types of athletes that we're working with. But at the end of the day, they're all looking to improve and get better. And that's where some planning, some goal setting happens. So it doesn't matter what the goal is. I think it's just a practice of being deliberate. So sitting down and maybe talking with them at the beginning of the year, hey, what is NICA for you? What is cycling for you? Is that spending time with friends? Is that improving the trails, doing trail maintenance, having a really fun time? Is that trying to podium at races, which might take a little bit more effort and extra training sessions outside of team practices? But just having them figure out, hey, what do I want this year to look like? Am I camping at all of the events with my friends? I think that just gets them really looking forward to it. At least that's what got me looking forward to it. And once we figure out what that athlete wants, do they want a top 10? Do they want a podium? Do they want to win? Do they want to attend every team ride and have that sense of community? Then we work backwards and figure out, how do we achieve that? How do we get that result? Okay. So this would be like an example of goal setting. And one of the biggest things when setting goals is actually finding out what that limiter is. So, what aspect of that writing can you improve to get the desired result? So, one example of a goal, which would be my brother and I sometimes set power based goals and weight goals because those are very specific for cycling performance. But that's, maybe on one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum can be, hey, I want to do this team practice loop that we do in X amount of time. Or I want to do this one climb that we do in X amount of time. And that would be success for me. So whenever we do something like that, we need to just do baselines. So, figuring out where we are and then where we need to be, and then figuring out what aspects, are our limiters. So for some people, that's going to be power. They haven't ridden enough and their muscles aren't adapted enough. They don't have their aerobic system to go up a hill that fast. So, how do we increase that? Some of the athletes we work with, they're terrific. They have terrific aerobic systems. You put them on a mountain bike, you send them up a hill and they're first, they're second, they're a really great natural athletes, but maybe they're lacking those skills. And that's a really important aspect to cycling, because if you can push power really hard, but you can't corner or you can't descend or you can't many of those things, then your performance will decline. And if performance is one of your goals, and that's something that, it makes it makes more sense to spend time on that than it does to go all out on a climb. And what we tend to notice is that what people are good at, they will train that when, they're already good in that aspect. They don't need to spend as much time on it. They need to spend time on their limiters. Other things could be nutrition. Maybe they eat a lot of candy, eat a lot of junk food. So, how can we make a plan and systematize doing a little bit better there? We always advise to set an outcome goal, 2 podiums this year, a win this year, leader's jersey. But after that, to actually focus on, an output or a process goal. And that would look like, hey, doing this one segment in X amount of minutes, or doing this one loop so fast, pushing X amount of watts for X amount of time. So that is something that I think is important. And these are all very kind of performance based. But again, this can be not performance based. So I want to go hang out with my friends. I want to do all of our group rides. I want to become a team leader next year. Those are all good things to think about. Okay, so how to help? I think sometimes it always helps to have some guidance. So we have something like a questionnaire. How many hours do you want to work? I think the biggest thing is for the athletes is, do you want to ride outside of team practices? Because that is something that if you want to do well or be competitive, then it's probably going to take extra rides, maybe an extra ride or 2 a week to reach their goal. And this just helps kind of templatize those goals and how much time the athletes have. And this is something we can send out for your guys' reference if that's something that would be beneficial. Okay, so this is ATP is annual training plan, baseline testing and tracking improvement. I got a little bit too in the weeds for this one, but typically when athletes start riding, they'll start around October or November, especially if they if they run cross country or if they do another sport. It might be ending maybe a little bit later in the winter. but that time before, typically before the end of January, is where athletes should work on not going all out for workouts, but being consistent and increasing the amount of time that they're riding. As they get towards the end of January and February and get closer to the season, that's when they can spend maybe 2 or 3 rides a week working on the upper end of their fitness. The best way to do that would be to do a test, a heart rate test or a power test, and create zones off of that, so that they're, you can make sure that they're not overdoing it. And something that we've found to be really motivating to our athletes is at the beginning of when they start training, when we can start doing team practice, is to do a segment where everyone goes up and see how fast they can do a specific loop or a specific climb. And then make sure they write that down, or they use Strava to keep a record of that. And then every every 6 to 8 weeks, every couple of months, do another group ride out there and see how much faster they get. And that has been really motivating to a lot of athletes, because as soon as they see improvement, it's something that they want to keep doing, which is good, and it makes them happy. It keeps them motivated and willing to put in maybe extra work if that's what they're looking for. Okay, so I did bring up using the winter up until January to get a little bit more riding. You can also use strength training if you have gym work, or gym days are really beneficial. And what we've seen is that it actually it helps with motivation because it is variety. So instead of maybe, I know some teams don't have access to a lot of trailheads. So this may be another way to get a good workout in without getting another ride in, or kind of breaking the monotony of if you have to go to the same trailhead a lot. Prior to the end of January is where we're focusing a lot on endurance, which is increasing the amount of time that we're riding. Not super hard, but you are putting pressure on the pedals. And what this is doing is it's increasing the amount of mitochondria that are in our cells, our specific cycling specific muscles, before increasing the density of the mitochondria when we start doing a little bit more of the high intensity training. So that's kind of what we're looking at on a kind of a little deeper level. Cool. So, why the off season is kind of the best time to, and I wrote here, utilize a coach, but that's not what I mean. I mean, why the off season is the best time for improvements. So much of the improvement that we see in our athletes is done before the season begins. So, 20 to 30% gains in power. And the reason why is because there's no racing. So it's all about progressive overload and resting. And once you get into your actual season, it's so hard to make more improvements because you're constantly fatigued from racing. So you're racing and then you're recovering and then you're just getting prepared for the next race. So the months of November, December, January, February are where we see the majority of the improvement, and it's for that reason. So if you wait too late to get serious about training and improving, then it's a little bit too late to make really big gains. And this is important only if a lot of your goals are performance based. So some of the resources that we'll send out is the athlete questionnaire. I also, in regards to planning a season and an annual training plan, We do have like a video course. It's free. We made it. It's on Gumroad. I'm gonna send the link to Nikki, but that would be, and maybe if you as a coach don't have a lot of time to deep dive, maybe you can share these resources with the athletes and they can look into it a little bit more themselves. So, okay, we're about 22 minutes in. So some of the other things that I think are really important to student athletes are making sure that we aren't making the sport as expensive as a lot of people tend to make it. So there, honestly, cycling can be something that you spend $20,000-$30,000 a year on easily, but it doesn't need to be. And here are, that's, I studied economics in college. That's value is something that's really important to me. And I want this to be as accessible to athletes and to students and parents as possible. And the first thing that we always think of is going to be the bike. Bikes can range from $300 beach cruiser BMX bike to $10,000, $15,000. So for our purposes in NICA, none of the trails are incredibly technical. There's nothing that I don't think that a somewhat entry level aluminum hardtail can get through. And I would recommend this. People win races on aluminum hardtails, and especially courses like Lake Paris and Vail. These are going to be really good tools. Something that could be potentially better is a carbon hardtail due to the weight, but there is that trade-off of that extra cost. So aluminum hardtails, I think, are going to be the best for people that are new to the sport, or maybe they're not even new, and they raced on a loaner the year before, and they want a good tool to go into next year. I think an aluminum hardtail is going to be that. The next more expensive is going to be the carbon hardtail, and this is going to be the most expensive, a carbon full suspension. This is also going to be, it's more expensive up front, but it's also going to be more expensive to maintain. When you have a full suspension, you also have to worry about the suspension in the rear. And that's a whole extra part that is not even there on a hardtail. Some of the best resources to find good aluminum hardtails are going to be Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, eBay. I'm a big proponent of getting, the previous year's model 2-3 years back. When those came out, not a lot changes year to year from geometry or materials that are being used. So using something that's a couple years old, there's not, you're not giving up a lot of performance. What you do want is something that's going to be a single ring drivetrain, because and they've been doing that for entry-level bikes for a long time. So it shouldn't be an issue to find something a couple of years old that's a single ring drivetrain. Something that's also going to be important is Shimano or SRAM brakes. Other brands are going to be like Magura or something like that. Those are a little bit more finicky, a little bit harder to work on. So honestly, my preference is Shimano. You can watch videos on maintenance, and that's going to be one of the next slides actually. But Shimano is going to be the easiest to work on because it's just mineral oil, and that tends to be a little bit easier to work on. Something that you are going to want when you're inspecting maybe a used bike, if that's what you're looking for, is going to be a fork that's in good condition, because something that maybe the very most entry-level bikes that are between $700 and $900 to a more race quality bike that's around maybe $1,400 to $1,800 is going to be that fork. Because so making sure that you have a good fork and it's in good condition is something that's going to be important. I actually have some recommendations. I really enjoy Giant as a brand. I think they're very economical in what they provide for the amount of money spent. So this is this is a type of bike I would recommend if you want something that's new. Or you can find, an XTC 29er not from 2021, but from 2020 or 2019. And those will be incredibly similar and maybe cost, maybe $1,000 instead of 1,400. And so this is what I would recommend. I think this is race quality, better tires, like I said, that fork versus something like this, which is the Giant Talon, which is $960 or $720. Like I said, those main differences are going to be the tires, the wheels, the forks, and whereas this maybe 25, 26 pounds, pretty close to a nice hardtail, will maybe weigh 21 or 22. That's a lot more expensive. So this is getting you in that ballpark. Whereas this one is probably significantly more, maybe 28, 29. And I think it's worth the extra $500, that marginal cost to get this upgrade. Some other brands, this is a Specialized. This would be very comparable to this XTC, but it is a little bit more. Specialized is a little bit more expensive of a brand. I also saw this Marin. This is a good bike, 1,500. So looking in that price point should satisfy being a a race quality bike. Okay. Beyond the bike, so I think maintenance is another big thing. You can take your bike to the bike shop and get it tuned up and everything, but that will get expensive. So I think purchasing your own toolbox and using YouTube to learn to maintain your bike is going to be something that is really beneficial to the parents as well as the athletes. Even down the line, I think that this is an important skill for them to have. The toolbox I recommend that will have most of your things is going to just be on Amazon. It's going to be right here. Okay, right here. So it's $44. You can do the majority of your tune-up on this. If you're replacing cables or something, that might be a one-off that you need to purchase maybe a few days in advance of when you're planning to do your tune-up. But this should help you solve that issue of something's going to go wrong when you're working with 20, 30, 40 kids. And if each family can't purchase their own toolbox, I would recommend maybe having one day a month where one of the team parents does a maintenance day where people can bring their bikes, come to one house, a centralized house, people can hang out and borrow tools. But one of the things is that nobody should be able to leave before the tools are put back, because tools go missing so quickly and we don't want that happening. So the resource that I recommend for fixing your bikes, adjusting your gears, swapping out tires, adding sealant, changing cranksets is going to be just YouTube. GMBN Tech is a really good resource, and I actually linked it in the PowerPoint. So this is something that I've used a lot. Yes. Okay, so gear and clothing. The one most important piece of gear that's going to keep the athletes happy and comfortable is going to be bibs, which are the shorts. A lot of times people, when they're getting into cycling, will buy normal shorts, but it's worth it to spend the extra $10 to $15 to get bibs. And what it does is it just keeps your shorts up so that they're not moving around a lot. So it'll keep the athletes a lot more comfortable. You can get these, people spend hundreds of dollars on bibs when, that extra cost is not equating to a ton more value. So my favorite two things or brands are going to be the black bib, just black bibs. I think right here is an example. So this is what I mean by the bibs, these extra lines. It keeps the clothing in place versus these shorts. So for the $5 extra, you get the bibs and you're going to be a bunch more comfortable, and the athletes will be a lot more comfortable. You can also go to Amazon. Bayleaf has some good bibs as well. They're around the same price. For other pieces of clothing like helmets, gloves, jerseys, I think Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Amazon, also going to be good resources for that. Okay, last thing is ride nutrition. When we're riding with 20, 30 athletes, it's inevitable. Someone is going to bonk at some time. They're going to run out of their glycogen stores and they're going to have to limp home. We want to prevent that as much as possible because it's not fun for them. It's not fun for you. It's super simple to prevent. So making sure that they're eating some carbs when they're going out and drinking water and electrolytes. Least expensive thing, honestly, just get real food. You don't need the Cliff Bars, the goos, the gels when you're just riding. Get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then what I really like using for nutrition, for hydration and nutrition and electrolytes, it's called ESN Fuel. This is a really good, it's $30 and you get about 20 servings. So that should last about a couple of months if you're using recommended dosages. And we also do have a link to 30% off on this. So that would make it $20. And that is a really good bang for your buck. You could also do scratch or hammer or anything like that. But I've been cycling for years. This is what I get. This is what I go by. And I suggest that your team and your athletes to use this as well. Okay, so that's cycling on a budget. Something important for a lot of the new athletes or the athletes that are very fit but need to work on skills is going to be, these are our resources and different skills that will help them perform a little bit better. And one of the biggest things in cycling is balance. So making sure that you're balancing on your bike when you're descending. 2 practices or drills for that is going to be track stand practice. I put a link on there, and wheelie practice. I do recommend not asking track stand practice. Yes, you could do at NICA practice. Wheelies, I really try to have the kids not do wheelies when we're riding together for liability reason, and this is something that they like doing with their friends. So ask them and encourage them to practice it on the grass. But by practicing these 2 things, they're going to feel a lot more confident on their bike, and they're going to progress their skills a lot, because that is the basis to a lot of descending faster, descending steeper trails. Also body position. I put another link here. You're going to want to bend your knees, look up and look ahead. You want to look kind of as far ahead as you can and position your body for all of the corners. Cornering is one of the best skills to practice. If an athlete can learn to take an apex versus kind of not taking apex, they will shave minutes off of their time, because there are typically a lot of corners in mountain bike racing. And if you know how to take a corner well, you don't need to decelerate. And if you don't need to decelerate, you don't need to accelerate through all of your corners, and you'll save a lot of energy. So yes, I know that was a lot of information. I do want to go into some questions if anyone has any. And if something that I am willing to do is, if you have a team or you have more coaches that couldn't be on today, I would love to schedule 45 minutes to do something similar to this, and we can go and answer. I could do a quick go through these similar slides and then answer their specific questions if they have any. So okay, I'm done. I want to see if anyone has anything to ask.
Hey, appreciate you doing this presentation. It was great. Some stuff I knew, but it was always good to get a refresher. Quick question for you. Is it a good idea to do like stationary bike training, like put the trainers out at this age? We always, we start them out when they're in 6th, 7th, 8th grade and on through high school. And we notice the high school kids, a little bit more into it. But what is your take on the stationary bike?
You know what? I love the trainer as a training tool. I think it's one of the best ways to increase your fitness a lot if you don't have a lot of time. And especially as our daylight decreases, it's starting to get dark at 6, and then it'll be 5:30 soon. I think that the stationary bikes, the trainers are a great tool. I recommend keeping those sessions to, an hour, because they do tend to get monotonous and kind of mentally taxing on some of the athletes. If they're with a group, that does help a lot. But if they're doing it by themselves, it takes a lot of motivation to get on a stationary bike. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic tool to get a lot of adaptation quickly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. I saw that. Yeah, Zwift is a great tool. It keeps people engaged, and there is, now there's actually a lot of community aspect to it. People and student athletes are much more familiar with Discord than I am, but people will jump on a Discord and they're able to talk with their friends while they're riding on a trainer. So great info. Can we get a copy of the links? Yes, I can send a copy of the whole deck to Nikki and get that sent out to everyone. Yep. Yeah.
I got a quick one for goals on you.
Yeah.
You have like good examples you've used with your athletes on process-based goals that work really well?
You know what? One of my favorite process-based goals is actually recovery. So one of the student athletes are busy, right? Some of them, as they get older, they have AP classes, they have a social life, they have friends. And we've had athletes that, they go to sleep at midnight and they have to wake up at 6 and and they're at school all day. And then they're asking like, I'm stagnating. I'm not seeing a lot of increase in performance. And you're not getting better if you're not recovering, if you're not resting, if you're not getting a lot of sleep. So one of the process goals we like to recommend is actually, get 8 hours of sleep a night, set a bedtime. Outside of that, maybe another process goal, complete my interval workout, the 2 interval workouts I have a week, make sure that, those are done correctly. Those are done well. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question though. I
have a question for you then.
Yeah,
if you were a coach setting up like a training plan for the team, how would you separate them based on fitness, based on skills, based on age? How would you recommend doing that?
Yes. Yeah. So I know that this is something that a lot of coaches or newer coaches struggle with, because like I was saying earlier, there is such a wide spectrum. I would probably recommend maybe 3 categories. the very newbies, they're borrowing some bike, they're using a BMX bike, having them, what I've found is doing loops of a course is a really good way to keep an eye on athletes. So maybe a 3 mile loop, 4 mile, 2 mile, and have those newer athletes utilize that loop, get better, enjoy mountain biking, enjoy the sport. And then the ones that are maybe middle tier, have them, time themselves, try to do better than you did the week before or the month before, do 3 loops, time yourself. And then for the advanced athletes, sending one coach out with them or designating a ride leader. The advanced athletes are in a lot of cases faster than the coaches. So having someone maybe on an e-bike to help with safety, and in case there's any injury or any mechanical issues, I think would be a good route. But those faster athletes, if they want to keep improving, typically they're going to have to go out and ride by themselves and push themselves, or with a smaller group. And what I would recommend for maybe like a plan, a schedule, maybe 2 days during the week and 1 day on the weekend. And those could be is it Saha? Yeah.
Yeah, Shahi, sorry.
Like Saha said, maybe the weekday ones can be trainer workouts, and the weekend ride be 2 hours in the beautiful mountains that we have in Southern California. I know that I kind of went over a lot of details, some probably too like nitty gritty. But like I was saying, Nikki, I will make sure that I'm sending the links, all the links to you, because I think that the doing this on a budget is something that's going to be important to, I think that's something that maybe you guys can utilize to your parents and to your athletes, and can I was in NICA. My first year of NICA was 10 years ago. And I love this. And what I want is more athletes to, when they're 23, to still be riding, because it's, it's healthy, it's fun, and yeah, it's good. So.
I think something else that you mentioned earlier, that's a good point. You talked about kids like going on to ride in college, which we've seen a lot of SoCals successfully do that. But it's really cool because as we both know very well, it's really hard to actually make a living as a professional cyclist. But if you actually look at the monetary value of getting an athletic scholarship to a college, it's like there's a lot of value there. And so I think something that's really important is finding ways to make sure that these kids don't burn out by the time they get to that point. And so it's just really important, like they can do trainer workouts, they can do intervals, like you're saying, but just keeping it fun and making sure they have that social aspect still, making sure they have those process goals like you're talking about, will hopefully get them to a point where they still love cycling when they get to college or when they're 35 or whatever.
Yes. And you know what? Thank you so much for bringing that up, Nikki. Yes, we have had many of the athletes that we coach go off to cycling schools. So, and my brother, he's actually at a cycling school right now. So Milligan is a private school in Tennessee, and private schools can give really great scholarships for athletics. And if they're paired with really good academics, merit-based scholarships, you can get the majority of college paid for. So I think that is something that people should consider as they're getting to their junior and their senior year. and reaching out to those coaches. Fort Lewis has a really good program in Colorado. CU Boulder, Colorado Mesa, Milligan. There's
East
more.
McRae has a bunch
Lee's-
of SoCal athletes.
Lee's McRae is a fantastic school. Marion. So, there's 10, 15 really good cycling colleges. And what it'll do is it'll give the athletes a community when they go off to college, because, college can be for some people like a lonely place if they don't have their tribe. So, yes, that's a good point, Nikki. When does the SoCal? And I think this is a better question for Nikki. When does the SoCal season officially start?
October 15th, just a couple days from now. And then you can have a certain number of practices, but some teams start right on October 15th and some teams wait until January. So every team gets to kind of make that decision based on their availability and what works best for them. But that's also why it could be a good opportunity to schedule a call with Imperium before the team really gets started. That way you can kind of map out what your season might look like and what the preparation looks like for the racing.
Oh, and Nikki, I would like to, so I'm so fortunate that a few times a month, maybe 3 to 4 times a month, I take a group of student athletes out. They range from maybe like 14 to 17 years old, and it is more for advanced athletes, but we try to get in maybe 2.5 to 3 hours of riding. And we would love to have more of your guys' athletes, if that's something that they want a little bit extra training, stimulus, community riding with other student athletes that are, ambitious in cycling. We typically ride in the Chino Hills State Park or in Corona. So I know that some of you are probably a little bit far for that. But if you have athletes that are local, typically maybe like JV or varsity level athletes, I can send out the invite to Nikki, and maybe for these next couple of months, if they want to get a little bit of harder, longer rides in, that's something that would be open to them.
I know, like when I talk to Imperium kids too, that's their favorite thing. Their favorite part of having a coach is doing those group rides, because they get to ride with their friends from different schools and teams too.
Yeah, and that's so funny. We've had athletes from up towards Pasadena and down towards Temecula and towards Laguna Beach, and we're pretty central, so they all get to ride together. And it's funny, outside of us, they get together and do more rides together. So I know they're gonna be friends for a long time, and that's what this is all about. So. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, do all of the kids in those group rides have to be registered in the pit zone?
That's completely not NICA. So if kids choose to go to those Imperium rides, it's not covered under NICA insurance. It's not an official practice. Do you have insurance for those rides?
Yes, we have our own business insurance. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that would be covered under them. Hashtag not NICA.
Yeah.
Nikki, what about with our team rides? Like if after October 15th, we start having rides, do those kids all have to be registered? Or if they were registered last year, what are the details of that?
So any NICA practice, the student athletes and the coaches need to be registered in pit zone. You can do the one-time try it out with a waiver, but after that, you do have to be registered in pit zone. And I believe it's 6 practices that you're allowed to have total. Most teams do them on the weekends. Usually it's like a maintenance day, and then they might do a couple of practices after. But yes, they do need to be registered in the pit zone if it's an official practice.
And when you say 6 practices, you mean between October 15th and January 1?
I believe it's January 1st. I believe it is.
Okay, so after
I guess
January
that's
1st, you could have more practices, but between October 15th and January 1st, you get to have 6. As a
Yeah,
reference.
well, and all that information is in the most recent coaches news that went out. It's long and big, but it's all in there. And so all of that is lined out in there.
Cool. We got to plan some rides, Todd.
Any other questions at all? Okay, do you have anything else to add, Ema?
You know what I'm gonna do? I'll put my information in the chat. If you guys want me to do something similar this time, typically every day of the week is pretty good for me. I have a pretty flexible schedule outside of normal business hours, and yeah, I would love to see some of your guys' student athletes come to some of the group rides, because the kids aren't joking. They're a lot of fun. Here we go. And then I'm gonna put my phone number. You guys can text me, call me, email me. Yeah, and I'll send Nikki all of the details on the slides with the links, and probably the group ride calendar through November. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time. It was really nice seeing you guys over Zoom.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come help us. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate the info.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll send out the recording, the links, and then you'll also get a certificate for your CEU. So that will all be sent out by the end of the week. I have to send it to national so they can watch it first, and then we'll get that going. And also, I guess the last thing is, if there are any other topics that you all are interested in having webinars about, or having a roundtable like this, I'm sure we could get that together. I'm flexible also, so we could plan something. So just shoot me an email if there's anything that you think would be helpful for coaches to get together and talk about. We can definitely do that together.
Totally off topic, but do you guys know if any of our bike sponsors are going to have bikes to sell students this year?
I do know Haro is working on it. It's really limited. Trek is starting to get bikes in. I'm not sure if all the Trek stores are doing discounts, since it's kind of up to each store. Yeah, I know it's still really hard. And then as far as like used bikes go, I've seen a lot of them kind of popping up. They just sell really quickly and for a pretty high price right now. But hopefully they'll start showing up more, because it's hard right now. Kenda Tire, they're going to be a sponsor again. I know that they're catching up with their stock as well. So we are in contact with all of those companies. That way we can keep up to date on the information. And then if we find out someone gets a shipment in, we'll make sure to send it out to everyone so they know.
Cool. Any word on Tehachapi? I know it wasn't confirmed yet for the
As soon
final.
as it's confirmed, we'll put it on the website and we'll send it out. But for now, it's still to be determined. So,
Thank you.
but all of our other venues right now we have permits for them. So that's on schedule right now, which is really good. So, couple more months.
Eyes in the sky,
light, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining.